Here from Titleist, we work on the 3Ds. So distance, dispersion, and the biggest thing that we work on is descent angle. So if you're launching it low, your descent angle is going to be quite low. So it's going to hit and run. And we want the ball to come down at about a 45 to 55 degree landing angle, so it stops. So to have that, we got to work on this launch. That comes in, the right shaft, the right head, for the player, swing speeds, and most importantly, having the right ball.
So, Brian, today we are fitting players in 2025 Pro V1 and Pro V1X. And on TrackMan, we're looking at a whole manner of numbers, one of which is launch angle. You're a ball fitter, you're a club fitter, you do it all. So let's talk about launch angle. If I've never heard of the term before, what would you describe launch angle as?
Launch angle is the way the ball comes off the club, what the angle is that it comes off the golf club. Depending on if you're hitting a wedge to a 7-iron to a driver, we're looking at different launch angle, not how this ball comes off there. Depending on how it comes off there is going to determine how high it goes, how much spin there is, how much distance it's carried in that. So there's a lot of things that go into it. It's one of the very, very important factors that we use when we do club fitting or ball fitting.
Sure. So when you talk about launch angle, it's measured in degrees, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
What are the factors that go into determining how high or low a launch angle is?
So there's a few things. If we just look on the basics, the club angle. So if you've got a 7-iron, which is at 34 degrees, kind of a rule of thumb that we use is half of that loft is what you're looking for launch. Now it depends if you're inside, you're outside, off a mat. The attack angle, how steep you come into the ball, or how steep you come into it, how aggressive you are into it, the speed of it. There's a lot of things that will come into the factor of how the ball construction is made. Is it a range ball? Is it a Pro V1?
One example, you talked about indoor versus outdoor. Today, we're in a great facility here at Golf House Bielefeld. We're hitting off of mats. Majority of your work, when it's not cold weather, you are outdoors, fitting outside. So how can fitting off of a mat indoors versus outdoors, how can that change launch angle? Also, how can it change spin? What should a golfer expect to see?
Well, we kind of can look at it. For most of the studies that have been done, off a mat will launch a little bit higher and spin a little bit less. Off grass, off a outdoor surface, you're going to launch it a little bit lower, but you're going to spin it a little bit more. And those are the factors we got to kind of look at. It depends on, how hard is the surface? Can you get the club down to the golf ball? What grooves are you hitting on the golf club to get that spin, to get that launch?
So from what I'm hearing, when you have indoor fitting versus outdoor, you need to be very cognizant of those differences because
Absolutely.
There's not one true number you're looking at when it comes to launch angle on, for example, a 7-iron, correct?
Yeah. So let's take a driver, for instance. What you're looking at, you'd like to have 12 to 15 degrees of launch on a driver. But if you launch some people launch the driver low, 7 degrees of launch. Then you're going to have to change the spin rates to make sure so the different launches will mirror with spin rates to make sure that they go together to optimize the distance, carry, and landing angles for us.
So tying in with that, let's talk about a shot. You were just talking about driver. When we have a launch angle that is lower than optimal, what could a consequence be of a low launch angle?
Well, you got obviously shorter carry, probably more run. Here from Titleist, we work on the 3Ds. So distance, dispersion, and the biggest thing that we work on is descent angle. So if you're launching it low, your descent angle is going to be quite low. So it's going to hit and run. And we want the ball to come down at about a 45 to 55 degree landing angle, so it stops. So to have that, we got to work on this launch. That comes in, the right shaft, the right head, for the player, swing speeds, and most importantly, having the right ball.
So on that note, we're today celebrating the 25th anniversary of Pro V1 and in conjunction with the launch of Pro V1X as well. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between Pro V1 and Pro V1X and how they might slightly influence launch?
Yeah, so with a little bit softer ball, so you've got a Pro V1 that's a little bit softer than a Pro V1X. An X is going to come off the club a little bit faster, but it's going to roll up the club face just a little bit more because it's a little bit harder. So it rolls up the face, so it launches we're talking not a lot, but a little bit higher than a Pro V1 that's going to be softer and stick on the club face and launch that little bit lower. So we see that today, that there's a little bit difference in launch. We're hitting off of mats indoors, but we still see that difference in launch between the two golf balls.
So as a fitter, very experienced, you've seen a lot of different player profiles. What is a player profile you can think of that would say, hey, this player could benefit from a higher launching product, whether it be a higher launching golf ball, higher launching clubs? What are some signs that you look for?
Well, first of all, golf is unfortunately club head speed. And if you don't have enough club head speed, you're not launching it high enough, and you're not landing it very well. So we got to figure out a way to get that launch angle up so we get the height there. Where we see the majority of people that we see are needing a Pro V1X because we've got to get that ball up. We've got to launch it higher. We've got to get lighter clubs in them. They talk about the loss of golf clubs. Well, not worried about that. What we're worried about is playability, is getting this ball up in the air, lighter clubs, a ball that's flying higher and spinning more. Most people don't have enough spin. So with that launch, we've got to get the optimum spin with their launch. We use an example of that. Let's talk about drivers again. Everybody loves drivers. So a driver, one example is Brooks Koepka, is about a 7-degree launch on his driver, which is quite low, and about 3,000 spin. Then you go to McIlroy, who's about 14 degrees launch and about 2,200 spin. And they're about the same distances and everything. So it just depends, and they got to mirror together. Like I said before, that it's a marriage. Those two numbers will come together. Whether it's a 7-iron or a driver, they've got to work together, and that launch becomes very, very important for us.
You were talking about tour players as well, and one prime example of launch benefiting or being a detriment is Justin Thomas, a Pro V1X player. A common question that I think you get frequently, that I get as well, is which one is longer? Well, I believe I've heard the term before that it's neither and both.
Yeah.
So for Justin Thomas, who's a player that wants to launch the ball high, who wants to see it stay in the air, come down softly, Pro V1X for him is a slightly longer golf ball off the tee. With Pro V1 launching lower, not having the same peak height, it's be slightly shorter, but only marginally. But
yeah.
Again, we're in the game of margins, right?
Yep. Stories we tell, and that probably as a fitter, my best saying I have, my favorite saying, it's player dependent. There's not an ideal. Everybody's different, and that's our job. That's where we sit there. We've got the TrackMan data. We've got the best ball in the world to help players out. We've got probably the best fitters in the world, educated and all that, in trying to make everybody launch the ball higher, spin the ball more, and play their best golf they can.
Do you have any other anecdotes or times where you've seen different golf balls influence launch, different club status of club wear? Anything that comes to mind?
You're right in my wheelhouse, because I've got one of the great benefits of my job is I get to spend a lot of time with Bob Vokey, and he is a genius. He's so much fun to be around, and he's so enthusiastic. But we're at a club, and they're one of the top teams in Germany. We're doing a Vokey day, and they got brand new range balls, just unboxed them and everything. We've got Pro V1s that we're doing some testing, and Bob says, "Hey Brian, let's just do some testing for us, because these guys are practicing with these range balls around the green. And we're going, why are they doing that? So we said, okay, let's do this test. So we had an old Vokey wedge versus a new Vokey wedge, a Pro V1 versus their range ball. And we did some testing and this was just wedges. And the difference between launch angle in the wedges and balls was almost 8-9 degrees difference, and almost 4,000 spin difference between those. So you can see that the you didn't even need the TrackMan to see it. We're standing behind and you're just going, the range ball's just launching so high and flying and it actually comes up short. Then the Pro V1 just launches on this just trajectory and it's just spinning like crazy and actually goes a farther distance than the other ball. And if you're practicing with range balls that are doing this, and then you go on the golf course and you're playing a Pro V1, you got no chance because you have no idea how it's working. So we see it all the time. Range balls are pretty tough to fit with. You've got to understand them. The big deal is a lot of things are moving indoor, and with our new RCT ball that we use with the TrackMan, the data we get inside is fantastic. Now we can get the launch exactly right. We can get the spin exactly right. And in the fitting process, that's very important to get the people to play their best game they can.
You were talking short game as well. Could you maybe touch on some examples you've seen of the different types of shots that people like to execute around the greens? Because our fitting methodology is green to tee when we talk about golf ball. How can launch angle come into play when some players like to play maybe a low driving shot coming into the green with a lot of spin versus the player who could have the same scenario and prefer to launch it higher and come in with less spin? How do you see that as a fitter?
So again, we get to spend a lot of time with Bob Vokey, and Bob Vokey gets to spend time with the best players in the world. So we design our wedges to launch low and spin a lot. That's what the players want. What you get from a wedge shot is your trajectory, your versatility, and your spin, right? So what we found out is that the tour guys, when they're hitting their wedge shots, it's all under 30-degree launch angles. From a 48 to a 60 degree. Everything is launch. 60 degrees, pretty tough to get under 30. But that's what those guys are doing. And what we found, and especially from those guys, is the lower the launch and that lower trajectory, you can control it more. When that ball's flying high with not a lot of speed, you can't control it. So if you watch those guys hit, which you don't get to see much on TV, what the trajectory of that ball is, it's pretty low. So what we're looking for very often is this under 30. And with amateurs, that's extremely difficult because they want to scoop it and all that. But once we teach them, we've had some better players that we've had some good experience with teaching them how to hit these lower shots. And they've just their handicaps have gone down, they've won stuff, and it's a great feeling. And we get them in the right golf ball.
That's a bonus.
That's a bonus, man. That's such a big one, especially around the greens. The guys are touching, and you can actually see when they're chipping, when they're hitting these pitches, and when we're doing the testing between the Pro V1 and Pro V1X, you actually see the launch angles that are they're completely different. Most people, I can't see it, but if you've been doing it long enough and you get the better players, they see it right away. And we're talking a 20-yard chip shot, and they see the difference in the launch angles between those two.
That's a really good segue because today we have the luxury of fitting with TrackMan. We have data in front of us. What advice or what guidance would you give to a player who is not at a fitting, who is trying to figure out how launch angle can help them? Are there things they can do on their own, or are they best served going to get fit to determine if their launch angles are in a good place?
Well, there's a few things. If you've got access to a TrackMan, it's always going to help. But you got to be able to understand the TrackMan, and you got to use it correctly. I've seen many people use the TrackMan outside when it's wet. So when anything gets between that golf ball and the golf club, the launch angles are going to go high. The spin's going to go low. So if you got any dirt inside the golf club, your launch angles are going to be anything that's not going to grip that golf ball. is going to change that launch angle. So you've got to be careful. Indoors is a great place to understand that because it's a controlled environment. You're going to connect with the ball and the ground about the same. Your club's not getting dirty. You don't have to clean it all the time. The golf ball's not dirty. It's not wet. We've seen Bryson DeChambeau put water on his golf ball, just testing out what the launch. So it's a very important factor. But for the amateur, it's really seeing what it is, even seeing your PGA professional. Probably one of the best things that you can do. He can teach you your short game, how to keep that ball low, how to control that, and then fitting, getting the right grooves, getting the right grind on your wedge is such a big deal to get those launches a little bit lower and control them a little bit more. Getting fit for a driver to get the right loft in your driver, right shaft to make sure that launch angle is correct. With your 7-irons to get it the launch angle right, to get the spin rates right, to get that landing angle right. Starts with PGA professional, starts with us doing the fittings. And most importantly, as we talk about all the time, it's having the right golf ball.
Indeed. So a lot of numbers that we're looking at on TrackMan, spin, angle of descent, ball speed, but it sounds to me like launch angle is one that we really should keep in the back of our mind as another additional tool to refine if we want to play our best golf, right?
100%. There you can get lost in TrackMan, and there's just a few, but launch angle is one of the most important things that you can have at your in your arsenal to understand what's going on with the golf ball.
Very good. And it's a game of margins, and the more we can refine every metric and thing to help us play our best golf, especially when we're talking golf ball, starting at the green and moving our way back to the tee, every saved stroke is one that counts in the long run.
100%.
Very good. Thanks, Brian.
No way. I got to say thank you. It's been a pleasure, man.
Likewise.